All right, folks, it's about 8:30 right now, so we're going to get this started. First of all, I want to thank you all for signing in this evening to listen to this presentation. This is the third and last of the live versions of the webinars. The reason we're having this discussion tonight or this presentation tonight is there have been some recent trends and events in our industries, and I'm going to talk about one of them that happened back in January down in Brazil. I'm going to talk about that at length and show you some video. But we've also had some recent internal trends and some things that have happened in IATF and AS 9100 that have made us want to kind of step back and talk about what we're doing, the importance of what we're doing to raise everybody's awareness of, the job we do and, the integrity and credibility that DQS has and its impact on our customers and our customers' customers in terms of the acceptance of our certificates. And that really leads us into the next point, which is where this topic falls in the DQS quality policy. At the very bottom, we say we want to issue internationally respected certificates. And that's our ultimate goal. Our certificates have to have integrity and credibility. And we're going to talk about those words in a couple charts. The first thing we're going to talk about is the purpose of the third-party certification scheme. The purpose of what we're doing is to issue certificates that demonstrate compliance that specified requirements were met. And that creates value to an organization and to the customers and interested parties of that organization. I'm going to take a step back and talk about where this all started. For those of you that are old enough or have been in the industry long enough to remember, prior to the release of ISO 9001 1987, we didn't have a third-party scheme for these registrations. That was the first version of ISO. We had different British standards and some military standards, but really what the industry was customers going into their supply base and performing audits, and our customers, our current clients, would get audited by multiple different customers to different requirements by auditors who weren't trained. So the industry kind of started squawking a little bit and said, hey, we're getting too many audits. The people that are in here don't know what they're doing. Can't we have an international standard, or a common standard at least, that one body or one certification body can audit us against, and everybody would accept those results? So out of that, and this is greatly simplified, of course, was born the original ISO standard. And for those of you that have been in business long enough to remember, at the beginning, it was really, really hard to get ISO registration. People would have parties and they'd cheer when we would recommend for registration. And then what happened is it became a little bit more common and it became a little bit easier. And some of that is the industry learning, and some of that is maybe a lessening of the depth of the audits by some of the certifications bodies, because it came about that people learned that they could find easy registrars who wouldn't write findings, registrars who would, issue them certs. And we all know who those people are, or who we think they are. And then what happened is the industry saw that and said, oh, we don't want that. That's no good. And their response was to create industry-specific standards, which address not only their requirements, but also requirements for the auditors. So special training and certifications you had to go through. So the first of those, and the one that most people know, would be QS 9000, followed by TS, AS 9100 came out. So all these sector-specific standards came into play, and they all had their auditor qualification and accreditation requirements. And so for a while, it got really tough again. It was really hard to get QS 9000 certification. Some of those first QS 9000 audits, it was common to have 90 findings and 10 majors and things like that. And then it got easier again, because again, the industry, or CBs reacted and suppliers reacted to that, and there was a little bit of a lessening in the depth of some of the audits. And so now we're going through it again, where the industry is looking at it and saying, all right, well, I'm going to look at the auditors themselves. I'm going to look at UCBs and see how you are monitoring your auditor's performance, I'm going to look at the number of findings they write, and I'm going to look at when auditors are dismissed, what they're dismissed for. And so you see this starting to bubble up in IATF and AS 9100. And I'm sure it will be an area of emphasis as we go forward, because this is the industry reacting to certification bodies not towing the line in terms of the depth of the audits and coverage of the requirements. And so that brings us back to integrity and credibility. And again, this is about awareness. I don't feel that DQS is in this position, although I'm going to talk about a few of our problems. We have not gone down the path that you're going to see in a couple charts that one of our competitors has gone down. We need to make sure integrity is maintained throughout the certification process. So you hear that sentence, and it really says more than just auditing. It starts with sales, making sure that if we do give a reduction, that reduction is merited, meets the requirements, that we flush out the total scope, that we make sure that we have the remote locations, that we make sure we understand the EAA code. And then it moves on to scheduling and CSP to make sure the client is being served, and we schedule teams that have the industry experience and qualifications. Of course, the bulk of it falls on the auditors, because we're there actually doing the audits, making sure we cover the requirements, sample, and if we have a finding, call it a finding and not do soft grading. And then it falls finally on technical review and certificate generation to make sure we don't just hand wave reports through, that we actually review them and make sure they meet accreditation requirements. So you've heard me mention these words a couple times, and here's some definitions. Integrity, the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. For those of you that are auditors, that might sound a little bit like ISO 19011. That's because it is. And credibility, the quality of being trusted and believed in. So let's talk about that word, credibility. In our industry, we are selling audit services, but we're also essentially selling a certificate that means a client was assessed to all the requirements of the standard with deep sampling and met those requirements. People have to believe in that certificate. And I've used this example in the other two presentations. I'll use it now. It's a little like the US dollar. All economic theory aside, the US dollar isn't based on any commodity. We went off the gold standard in 1972. It's based on a belief in the US economic system. That's the value of your dollar, that people believe in the US economy. The value of our certificate is people believe we're doing a credible job. And that's a slippery slope if we start going down a path where we're not doing a credible job. Your integrity as auditors, as salespeople, as schedulers, CSPs, and reviewers is what's backing our certificates in the UL DQS registered firm are. This chart came from Germany. You can probably tell the ones that come from Germany and the ones that I made, but I'll let you read it yourself. The ones that bothered me the most on these are, please tell the auditor to withdraw the nonconformity. The client is not happy. And if we keep this nonconformity, we run the risk of losing the customer. And I'll say this to you now, I'll say it to you in a couple more slides, and then, anytime it comes up in the future, we don't negotiate on nonconformities. If you write a finding that is valid, meaning it is against the requirements of the standard, the customer's quality management system, or customer specific requirements, it's going to stand no matter how unhappy the customer is, and no matter how much dissatisfaction, and if they're going to leave. We have to toe the line there. If we start dropping the line there, we're going to lose everything in terms of the value of our certificates. So we do have an appeals process, but again, appeals aren't based on, well, the customer is not really happy, we could lose them. They're based on whether the finding was written against the proper requirements. And so in this presentation, I've briefed not only the auditors, but the managers, because the managers are the ones that process the appeals and handle these types of complaints. And I think we're all on board as a management team to say, where the auditors have documented a valid finding, regardless of the level of dissatisfaction, it's going to be backed. Now, that's not carte blanche to just kind of wheel in there and go crazy. I mean, your findings have to be valuable based in the standard. They have to be based in the client's customer quality management system, and they have to be professionally delivered. There's a way to give bad news, and most of you know how to do it by now. But if they're valid, they're going to stand. Now we get to our story, and this is the story that really started this presentation. Again, Michael Drexel was the one that started this and wanted it to deliver it across the world, basically. So Brazil has a huge mining industry, and so one of the byproducts of mining is something called tailings, which is kind of off all of the kind of rocks that are left over when the valuable ore has been extracted. And what they do with these tailings is they make these dams. So there's a lot of these dams in Brazil. And so there's a program that's run down there to certify the safety of these dams. And so this was one of the largest, one of the biggest dams. And I'm going to show you what happened. Now, before I show you this, because I'm going to have to X out, keep in mind, this dam was certified as safe a week before this happened. So I'm not going to show you the whole thing. You get the gist, hopefully. But I am going to tell you that here's the result. In that accident, which happened in January of this year, more than 300 people died or are still missing. This is a timely presentation. I just got through watching the evening news, which I almost never watch. The CEO of Boeing was on there talking about the 737 MAX issue. Those of you in the aerospace, or those of you that have to get on a plane, are probably familiar with it. And he's basically saying it was a software issue. And there's a lot of questions about when Boeing knew about it and what they did about it and how they reported it. So it was interesting to watch him answer those questions. But these are the types of things that are happening. And Boeing is a certified company, just as this mining company was. There's more to this story aside from the tragedy. As I said, the dam was certified a week before it collapsed. And you might say, well, Dave, it's more of a safety certification. Well, it is. It's a safety plus quality certification, but it is a certification. This certification was given by TUV, one of our major competitors. Prior to TUV certifying the dam, another certification body was contracted by the dam mining company. They said that the dam was not safe. And the mining company said, oh, well, we think that you're over-interpreting the requirements. We're going to find another certification body. And they did. TUV came in and did their certifications. But there's even more to this story. The auditors who did the certification are being held criminally liable. And that's not what I really want to focus on. This is, again, has a lot to do with safety, and it's in a foreign country. What I want to focus on is this statement here. The auditors felt they were pressured to do the certification, that they would lose their jobs or lose business if they did not do the certification, did not grant it. I don't want you guys to ever feel like you're in that situation. Sales, we have to do the right thing. We can't play name that tune with the number of days. I can do that audit in 2 days. I can do it in 1 day. We can't do that. We have to do the audit for the amount of days we think it's going to take to do a credible job. Scheduling, we can't just send anybody. We have to or we'll get a guy, we'll get him the EA code. Sometimes we can't get them the EA code because we have rules we have to follow, rules based on the accreditation requirements. Auditors especially. We're going to talk about this in a second. You're going to be on site. You're going to maybe feel pressure not to write that AR, but part of being an auditor is the ability to give that unpopular news to the clients. And finally, technical review, you know the story. There's sometimes pressure to get certificates through, but we have to do the job we have to do. We overturned certificates last year at the deadline because the audits weren't done properly and created a lot of dissatisfaction with the customers, but we just couldn't issue the certificates. So again, this is reinforcing things we're already doing. As an organization, better to lose the client than there'd be one single accident or victim. We're doing certifications in aerospace, IATF, medical devices, chemical companies, environmental, you name it, some serious industries. The results of our certification, although it's not a product safety certification, have meaning. Our customers and interested parties believe that we are doing these audits and certifying these companies as being completely compliant with these standards. So that's why it's important to write those findings when we have them and to give them majors when the customer needs to get a major. As managers, I said this a few minutes ago, we need to be firm, and where our auditors are writing findings against either the ISO standard, the QMS, or customer-specific requirements, those findings need to stand no matter how much customer dissatisfaction we have. A lot of this is focused on the auditor, and that's because the auditor is the one that's generally doing the sampling and writing the findings. Remaining true to your convictions, another 19,011 item, getting out on the floor, auditing all the requirements, doing the sampling, writing the findings without soft grading. Mr. Brannick put out some statistics from the first quarter of 2019 on the audits we've done and the audits we've done that had no findings. 30% of our audits had no findings in the first quarter of 2019. That includes aerospace, IATF, 1345, everything was included in that. I have to tell you, I find that a little bit hard to believe, especially some of these standards that, like ITF or aerospace or medical, where there's so many requirements and so many customer specific requirements. And I think what we're trying to say here is we're a little bit going down this path that maybe TÜV went down. We don't want to go down that path. So we have a decision to make. Are we going to do a job with integrity, a credible job, so that our certificate means something? And I think we all want to do it, and we need to take that high road in our dealings. You have the quote from Albert Einstein there. I can guarantee you won't always be popular. Nobody likes to get findings, but good companies that believe in the standard like we believe in the standard, understand that those findings are going to make them better and they will appreciate them. And so taking a lot of your time on a Wednesday night or whatever day it is, and I just want to leave you with this. Without credibility and integrity, we really have nothing. We don't have a business, and the value of the certificate is essentially nil. It's our job to remain on the path, remain aware of all those things we know, not give in to that pressure to take shortcuts. So you're hearing it here, you're going to hear it just like you hear about sampling all the time from me, and you hear it at the national meeting, you hear it from your boss, you hear it from your reviewers. You need to take it from the ear to the brain to the heart. So it becomes not just something you hear and you know, but something that you believe and act upon in your day-to-day dealings. And that goes for all of us, me inclusive, as we continue to do the audits and issue certificates. We want DQS to be known as the tough but fair registrar. And to do that, we need to make sure we don't cheat on the days or short the days. We need to make sure that we cover the requirements, we get out on the floor and audit, we do that sampling, and we're diligent in our reviews. And we're not down that road yet, and this is intended to keep us from going down that road. You're going to hear about more about this in the rest of 2019. And with that, I'm going to leave you. I'm going to wish you a good night, and please take the message as I intended. You know, we're doing a good job. We just need to reinforce those values so that our credibility is maintained. Okay, that's it for tonight. I thank you. If you have any questions, drop me an email afterwards. And with that, I sign off. Talk to you later.